Howdy, all of you delicious people. Today I am here to do yet another edition of Movies. Defy Logic. If anything, really, if people aren't aware or dare say care about any of all this, at the end of the day, we just take a lot of things from movies and then just heckle the crap out of them. We really just kind of make fun of a lot of movie things that have gone through time and time again. And yeah, we just kind of make fun of them. So, if anything, today I just want to say there's going to be a link down below for the next 2 days for everyone to go to donate to Susan B. Komen for breast cancer. Because at the end of the day, Jacksepticeye didn't feel he needed to donate to charity. So I decided for an entire week to make people aware about charity and hope that they donate. Anyways, there also is going to be linked down below for you guys to go and donate to this channel. But at the end of the day, all the money for the next 2 days will be sent to breast cancer. So let us make fun of movies, because at the end of the day, I really enjoy. The series. I always hope that I can keep coming back to it, and for all the good that I have while doing these things. It's just really fun. Anyways, I have, of course, if you don't know, I have bullet point things that I want to mention, and then after that, I'll go on little rants and whatever, and then I'll get to the next thing. I have about 24 things. Hopefully, it won't take a huge amount of time, but I tried testing out some of these, and it took like almost an hour, so hopefully, I can cut that down a little bit. First off, buildings are paper. When it comes down to it, when you get one big old blast to completely shatter the whole entire White House, man, evidently our buildings really aren't that sturdy when you got an alien race that is just with their nails just kind of grinding down a building and what have you. You have Hulk just kind of bashing through walls like they're absolutely nothing. Um, at the end of the day, I can't help but thinking that all of our buildings are just completely paper and how everything is just going to crash on through it. If you look at like Pacific Rim when they were trying to build those big, huge walls to get the monsters away from the town, man, the monsters just crash on right through the building like it was nothing. Again, buildings are paper. When you have Godzilla inside of a building hiding out from the military, I can't help but think that buildings are legitimately paper. Coma and amnesia timing. Really, at the end of the day, most of this is all just like, man, like people remember things at the perfect timing. And of course, coma patients wake up at the perfect time. There's a lot of times where I've seen to where, like in the movie Face Off, of course, we have Nicolas Cage right out of once face swapping surgery happened, right out of the gate, as soon as there was a little quiet downtime, Nicolas Cage woke up from his coma and then became John Travolta. This is his character. It's just kind of interesting to me how everything for coma patients is perfectly timed to where it's like, oh yeah, like it's a good thing you just so happen to wake up at this point because this is going on. Thankfully, um, never a wardrobe malfunction. If anything, realistically, besides Deadpool here, we rarely in movies ever see wardrobe malfunctions where we see a nip slip or clothes having to be adjusted or zipped or whatever because something fell out. Without a doubt, with how tight all of these superhero clothing is, you would think that they would just, while they kind of looked somewhere, like their clothes would just would just rip in half, or like there's sometimes for some women that would wear shirts that are way too tight. Maybe they'd sneeze and a button would break. Um, and of course showing off more of their cleavage. Um, but yeah, when you get it to where um, you're just kind of hoping for a wardrobe malfunction, it'll never happen because at the end of the day, we realistically don't get that ever in film. But at the end of the day, to get a to get a boob slip or something like that would honestly, uh, considering how these people are flipping all around and how they're kind of cartwheeling and this and that at the end of the day, even though they have sports bras and stuff to hold those bad boys in, still, um, like realistically, at the end of the day, it's like we should have some kind of interesting wardrobe malfunctions because this is technically real. This is technically life. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. We never really get those. Besides the Deadpool movie, we basically never get them. Especially when Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman, would always talk about like, yeah, I just went to move my neck in costume, and the neck just completely blew out. So I'd always have to quickly change through costumes because yeah, it would get to be to where the costumes are really sensitive and whatever, and one little adjustment, one little quick adjustment, and like basically you have to go through hours of re-putting on the costume because yeah, that's what happens. Um, let's move on though. Anyone can become the best getaway driver ever. Man, there's so many people that have no kind of skill driving and they just become the best driver in the world, easily getting away from police or another person or whatever, the bad guys or the good guys or whatever. But either guys, it's just, man, these people have um, beyond NASCAR like skills to be able to drive so quickly and whatever. Even if it's just like some random person that the two main characters met and they're forcing them to drive for them. Man, does this person all strangely automatically have some kind of ridiculous getaway car skill? And it's just kind of it's silly, it's stupid. Anyways, having a scandal or being hit on. Man, it seems like James Bond, like he always just falls in love with his assistants or whatever woman that is just so happens to be 10 feet away. All the women are all hitting on James Bond. But everywhere else, that doesn't happen very often. Like, you're not, like, in one thing, Captain America, the first Avenger, one of the ladies that saw Captain America was like, man, you saved a lot of soldiers. I want to thank you. And so she locked her lips on Captain America to thank him. And and then of course Peggy, Agent Carter, got mad and she's like, I don't like that you're locking lips with other women. And he's just like, she was just thanking me. It meant nothing. It meant nothing. It meant nothing, Agent Carter. You're the only one for me. You're the only one. You're my only dance partner. Um, but yeah, there never seems to be a lot of times where like superheroes or just people in general, there's like, unless it's like an actual legitimate date movie, like you're not seeing people like throwing themselves at these characters very often. And it like it did get to the point where it was like that on some movies and stuff like that way before, but now it's very scarce. It's just kind of like, I guess a lot of people now are very unapproachable, I guess. So I don't know, it's just very obscure. I know a lot of times before you would get to see like some boss or executive or whatever, falling in love with his secretary and stuff like that. Little secret romances in the business, but that again doesn't happen very often. Um, but yeah, scandals like that don't really happen very often in movies as much as it used to, which is kind of baffling to me. So, like, if anything, there's just something missing. I don't know what it is. If anything, there's only like detective things where they'll bring that up. It's like, oh, you were cheating on her with your secretary. But that's the only time it really comes up is maybe like detective stuff to really point out something for somebody. Sicknesses, diseases, or injuries. If anything, realistically, uh, from Die Hard with a Vengeance, of course, we get Bruce Willis's character in that movie who is constantly complaining about a headache. But any other movie that I've ever seen, we don't really get to see people legitimately actually just saying that they're sick or that they contracted some kind of disease very often, unless it's a movie specifically about somebody contracting a certain disease and how they struggle through that and whatever their life story is. Um, not a lot of people get injured unless it's kind of like the injury right before actual death. Um, yeah, you don't see that very often in movies either. A lot of the times, it's always like a severe injury that you would assume death, but sometimes they kind of bounce back from that and whatever, and find some intricate way of how to keep going on with their lives. But yeah, but I just think it's ridiculous how like uh, the movie world is almost like the Bruce Willis from Unbreakable of health. It's just like, when have I ever gotten sick? Whenever have I gotten hurt and stuff like that. It's just like, it seems like every single character in the movie world probably has to ask that question because it doesn't seem like anyone gets sick very often. Instead of doing sequels that you're going on vacation, really you can do a sequel about somebody being really, really sick, um, and seeing how you can just kind of do a story around someone getting really sick. Um, People have sexual needs. Really, at the end of the day, when you see, I think the movie called like Blue Lagoon, where you have a brother and a sister on an island together, and eventually you see the the two kids getting older, and of course they hit puberty. Of course you get the brother that is in the forest just kind of masturbating while the sister just so happens to walk in on him doing that. Um, what's kind of never discussed in films is just the fact that two people are alone on an island and people have needs. Whether they like each other or not, or whether or not dot 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 people have needs. Even if it's something as simple as like a hug or whatever like that. Um, Again, people have needs. Um, so really, at the end of the day, um, if they don't think that they can get away from the silent, then I guess after some point they should probably lose hope or whatever. But also there's like the whole like pirate ship thing when they would always make the joke. It's like, well, there was that one time that it did get really cold or whatever, or there was the one time in Poughkeepsie and this and that, and like it would just be this playoff joke. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, people have needs. People have needs. Animal behavior, not so much. I don't know. I think I might have kind of mentioned this once before, but it is kind of funny when Because when you think of a human becoming a monster, like you would think that that monster would probably have the same kind of size stomach as a human being. So really, at the end of the day, when you hear that, um, a monster slash bear, because it's always usually they say it's a bear, even though it's probably a werewolf. Um, Most of the time they will say that this werewolf killed 20 men and there's organs missing and it's an animal attack. I'm sorry, like I could see maybe 1 to 5 ratio of guys being killed and maybe eaten up, nibbled on a little bit, or maybe like something rationally what I like I don't see somebody taking out an entire town of people. Like I don't see like a monster or even a vampire like completely consuming an entire town of blood. It makes no sense. um yeah, it just doesn't, there's no rationale to any of this to just like, well, they must have been really burning out those calories like lightning quick. Their stomachs might just be like the quickest of lightning, and so they just gotta keep eating until the night is over. Which, again, like, wouldn't they get full? At the end of the day, when you see like werewolf kind of shows or movies or whatever, where you just see a big hanging thing of meat, and that's gonna keep um, somebody from eating human people. Again, you're trying to rationalize what is kind of like, oh, well, this guy killed 20 men and consumed them all and whatever. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Um, Again, when you have a monster or animal going out of their way to once they probably once they kind of get a whiff of some human and they really go after them, man, do they take um as much time as they need to just kind of wait for this um character to maybe trip and fall, um or maybe open a door thinking they're safe or whatever. They just kind of wait it out, just wait it out, and then eventually finally get their snack. Because yeah, evidently these animals have absolutely no short brain function of time to just be like, really, I just don't know where this meal is, so I'm just gonna go somewhere else and get something else. No, I'm just gonna stay here and just adamantly get this thing that I want called food. I need it. I need it. But yeah, it's just very absurd. How like for a like for an ocean monster or a sea monster, whatever, like wouldn't they find just bodies all the time just being drudged up from this killer monster thing? Like you would think there'd just be bodies all over the ocean just kind of just collecting from this thing, just bones or whatever. um because like that makes more sense than just kind of doing it to the point of like, okay, this just thing just comes out of nowhere and then just kills somebody. Like if you kind of see where eventually, if you can't show this thing right away, then the body is kind of the best thing to really show. If you show consistent bodies like piling up, then it's just like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense that there's something in this water to the public. Otherwise, this thing is just going to sprout up, start collecting people until eventually one person is just gonna be like, yeah, I saw this monster, and no one's gonna believe them until they finally see it. The public sees another attack, and it's, oh yeah, this person was right the whole time. Like, yeah, you stupid people, or they see some kind of photo, or they see some kind of something. Um, I don't know. I just think people will believe stuff better if there's legitimate evidence. Legitimate evidence. The best economy ever. Man, there's so many people that I've seen in movies that have had really, really good jobs. Um, writing, writing in that job. Their boss is probably crappy and this and that. The job isn't the best, whatever. But man, does everybody get their true dream job or whatever? It's never like somebody's just flipping burgers at a job they hate. That rarely ever happens very frequently. Normally, it's always just whatever corporate job or whatever suit and tie job that makes them look really cool, or this greatest of life job. Um, Rarely nowadays you get to see people just normally doing a normal 9 to 5 flipping burgers, whatever kind of job. For movies, you rarely see anybody even work like retail or something like that. It's always just like, yeah, corporate suit and tie job, I guess, because heck, if you do anything else. I remember like the watch. I was like, oh, thank God, here's somebody that actually works a 9 to 5 kind of retail job. I barely ever see that because everybody is just living the high life of corporate life and whatever. It makes no sense. Yeah. So the best economy. The best economy. Everybody's living their dream lifestyle and their dream, like, yeah, everything is corporated and everybody's living the high life, and this is always the high end of anywhere. It's not somebody stuck in a small town and they're flipping burgers because they have nowhere else to go. Or usually the main character is usually the sheriff of the town, and he has nowhere else to go because his father was a cop and his father's father was a cop and his father's father's father was a cop and blah 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 blah. Unless it's kind of a small town, then basically yeah, everything is like corporation and whatever. I work for this corporation. Well, that's great. That's awesome. Confused. Cue up that flashback. um, I have watched movies where at the beginning of the movie you have like this guy, he's covered in blood, and two people are dead in front of him, and the door swings open, police is there, and he's just looking around like, what, and then everybody's like, get down the ground, and he's like, and then like, and then the beginning just stops, and then it's like 5 days later, and it's like, so what? It's like you have this story kind of leading up to this part where this person murdered people and then is looking around at these police people, and you have this in-depth story, and then you stop it, and then you do 5 days earlier, and you do the lead up all the way to that point back again, and then you continue and finish up whatever the rest of the story is. That really, to me, is kind of the strange, like, real life would never happen that way. Just like, hey, these people are really confused. Let's give them a flashback so they can remember what all they're talking about, because at the end of the day, before the scene, they can't really say anything to lead to where everything is going. So yeah, a lot about this is very obscure. A lot about this is just kind of like, these people always look confused. Everybody is always confused. And it just like, it just proves the point that it's just like, these people look confused because the scene makes no sense. The scene makes no sense to shoot it that way. Let's go with second guessing kidnapper. Second guessing kidnapper. Usually for second guessing kidnappers, where they second guess whether or not they should have went and did this. Usually there's always one person. out of either two people or three people, but there's always one. There's never a thing where everybody's completely fine with it and they just go along with this thing, or all the people kind of are rethinking this, and maybe they give up the person and they let them go and whatever. No, it's always like one person is absolutely like, yeah, we should free this person, and the other person's like, no, we gotta kill him, we gotta shoot him, no, we gotta get this money and blah blah blah. We have to do this. Um, like for the people that came together with this plan, for the people that were going to possibly go to prison together because for this and all that, like with all the pressure of that, like, and for them just kind of buddy buddy thinking all this out and everything like that, to see them all of a sudden turn after this thing actually goes through fruition is really just baffling. How these people is just like, yeah, you have these people that were going along with this the whole time, but then right as it happens, it's like completely change your mind. No, I don't want to do this now. It's wrong. It's wrong. But yeah, it's just kind of hilarious. But I guess that really does reflect real life. Because normally with all these kidnapping situations, normally you can kind of get one of the kidnappers on your side, I guess, and kind of get them to help you or work with you or whatever. But yeah, it's just always just really weird how like one person is very polar opposite, and yeah, it's just considering these people had worked and planned and whatever and knew that if they could get caught that they would go to jail. It's weird. Conspiracy guy. You know what? Through most kinds of movies, through most kinds of films, um, you have usually normally a group of people, and you always eventually have that one guy, the one guy in the group that all of a sudden just turns on everybody, starting to accuse people of everything under the sun. Um, and really, at the end of the day, becomes completely untrustworthy, to the point where um, he is coming after you, or you are gonna have to come after him. Um, because really, at the end of the day, um, like once somebody starts to have those conspiracies and try to maybe get people on his side and whatever, it just like really creates this mutiny of people, and then it's just like, man, like this one guy is just overthinking all of this. But at the end of the day, like if people throughout this have really sort of trust people and whatever, but this guy is just, no, I'm still not going to trust everybody. It's just like man, like you're putting in so much like rift against what we're doing here. So like keep your conspiracies to yourself, and just let's survive here. Let's try to live. And freaking after that, wherever the chips land is wherever the chips land. But conspiracy guy, if you're gonna start conspiracizing and whatever, I'm gonna have to freaking just tie you up and just shut you up. Um, because at the end of the day, like I'm just gonna tie you up and just drag you along, keep you safe. But at the end of the day, I don't want you stabbing me in the back either. Conspiracy guy. Um, that's one thing that they never tried in movies, just like knocking that person out and just dragging them along. Because at the end of the day, it's just going, dude, I don't want to hear him. I don't want to, like, I don't want him to stab me in the back while I sleep. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna stab some conspiracy guy, and he's just gonna die or whatever. We're gonna have to do something with him because at the end of the day, it's just It's too much difficulty working with that person, and I understand that maybe there's no trust there because he's probably thinking somebody's in here gonna try to kill me and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's just like the goal is to survive. The goal is to live. Is this real? Is this all real? Really, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of times when people are put in a virtual world or people are put into another dimension or another this or another that, some kind of illusion of some kind, or some magical person did some kind of spell or something on these people and they lose reality. They don't really understand what is real. But at the end of the day, shouldn't things start to be thrown into some red flags? Um, to the point where, like you never, evidently you never know when the game is going to end. Like realistically, for virtual reality games, you could probably have a safe word that disconnects you from from the game. For stuff like magic or whatever, there's not much you can do. But if anything, I'm sure there's quite a few red flags that are notice that would noticeably pop up if you have a girl that you knew with red hair and the next day she's wearing blonde hair. It's like, what's going on? That's probably a red flag. Or all of a sudden like a demon is spouting out from your bed. It's probably a red flag to know that this world is probably not real, just so you know, just so you're aware. But it's like, man, there's obviously always like red flags for things to throw you on the scent of like, okay, this is an actually legitimate place. Because it's kind of hilarious how in a lot of movies, like people are always assuming, is this real? Did that guy actually die? When you get Tropic Thunder, where the director is dropping all the guys off onto the studio or what they think is a studio, and the director quickly gets killed, and then they're like, "Oh, is like oh, that was a really good trick of him exploding or whatever," and like, "Oh yeah, look, corn syrup and and this and that." It's like, but actually, he actually did legitimately die in the movie. So it's just kind of like it's like again, there should be so many red flags, but at the end of the day, it's just um, at the end of the day, it's just people can't figure out if things are real or not, and they always have to question it too all the time. It's just kind of hey, like I remember in the movie Stay Alive, where a lot of people when they would play the game or whatever, again they would lose all reality because it's like, hey, girl from the game, is this real or am I still in the game? No, the person's in your effing house. Maybe you should avoid her at all costs. You think? I don't know. I don't know. Is this real? Yeah, I think it is. I kill you because of my backstory. Is the next one. There, there are people with revenge in their minds. There are people that have an whole entire story of why they kill. Um, but at the end of the day, we usually don't find out this story right away. Someone kills, someone murders, and then we find out much later why they actually do it. Why they actually revenged upon this person because, yeah, he killed my brother, or I'm doing this for the good of society, or whatever. But there's always just this very long winded story about this person going to war and then they died and this other person died and it was all by this other person's hands. Now I'm going to try to find this person, get revenge on this person, and that's what's not letting me sleep for 2 days and just to get to this person man, when you just don't want to, when you just would really rather just have a person that just wants to kill somebody just to kill somebody rather than to have like, I want to tell you why I'm going to kill you. Let me count the ways. Because of course usually then you have this point in the movie where the person's either tied up or locked somewhere and then they have to tell them this story. And it's just like, man, like he doesn't, I'm sure he doesn't care, and I'm sure it's just kind of like, just kill him. Stab him to a point where he does die slowly, and then go into your story. Um, like, after he's dead, take all the time you want to explain until he croaks. And, like, at the end of the day, when he's rotting and wherever he's rotting from, then he'll probably know your story afterwards. And yeah, it's just like, why do you have to purposely no, I have to completely tell this person why I'm going to kill him before I do so. I'm going to take the time, the minutes, the hours to fully explain to him why I'm going to eventually come after him because he wronged me, and I'm going to torture him, and then I'm going to slowly but surely eventually figure out some way to try to kill this person. Why not just quick get it out of the way? And it's just, I don't know. I don't understand it. It's just kind of like stab the person, and while they're just kind of like gasping for breath, then you can for all the live long just be like, I'm gonna kill you for so and so person because you killed them. Dot 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 dot. Before you die, I wanted to let you know. That's all you can say instead of elongatingly tying this person up and going through this entire 20-minute story. It's just stretching out a movie is all it's doing, really. It's just stretching out a movie. When you get urban legends where the girl has to do this really elongated story about why she's going after this girl and why she created all these urban legends to kill all these people because she really sucks at her serial killer job because she really just wanted to kill one person and she ended up killing 10 more besides that because she just really sucks at this job at killing people. She couldn't just kill one person. She had to kill like 20 after or 20 before that to get to this one girl. But I'm going to tell you this 20-minute story. Pause for them sunglasses. Pause. You know what? I remember in a lot of films when a person would sit down next to a person, have this long-winded story and whatever, like in 80s movies or whatever. And you would have a person that would go and have this long-winded talk with somebody, and then after that, strangely enough, this person would like put on their coat, they'd put on their sunglasses, they'd light a cigarette, and then they would like nod to the person, and then they would leave. When you guys would have fights or whatever in movies before, you would have it to where um, before they legitimately would start fighting, somebody would put on some would do something to make them look cool, like maybe put on some kind of face paint or throwing on some cool shades, or if they had like a bandana on right before they get into this action, they'd like tighten the bandana and then go into their 20-minute stance of whatever karate thing that they're gonna do, and then get into the fight. I'm just kind of like, what? What? I'm like, why do these things all need to happen? Like they're choreographing all of these things down to a T, to the point of like, okay, yeah, after you're done talking to this person, you gotta put on your shoes, you gotta put on this coat, you got to knock your boots against the wall twice, and then you got to shuffle 2 steps to the left, and then shuffle 2 steps to the right. Then you got to put on your hat. You gotta wave your hat, and then light a smoke, and then light the smoke, and then nod, and then leave the room after this conversation is over. Hopefully, you can remember all that garbage, that choreographed garbage before once this scene is done, or otherwise we have to go and redo the whole scene just so you can do that weird and goofy routine to leave the scene. It's goofy. It's so goofy. It's like somebody like choreographed all that garbage in for some strange reason. It makes no sense. Um to where it's just kind of like you have to signaturely say goodbye, or signaturely say that you're going to fight somebody, or you're gonna have some kind of weird signature for some kind of thing that you're doing. It makes no sense. It's just kind of like, I guess for some, like when theaters, like maybe that is some ways of like saying goodbye to people, like instead of doing like a standing ovation or whatever, like this is my way of saying goodbye, like tipping my hat or whatever. But it's just obscure. It's just very, very obscure. Let's go for know the right building to blow up in alien invasions. You know what? There's sometimes in alien invasion movies where when the spaceships come down or whatever, there's sometimes where they just randomly blow up buildings. But most of the time, the alien invasion, whatever, the alien ships always know like the perfect things to blow up, or the perfect things to go and kill, like a sheriff building, or the White House, or the Pentagon, or the this and then this and that. Like, for a species that probably shouldn't know our language and everything like that, that is just coming down and just trying to take over, man, do they do their research before they do anything? And most of the time, it's probably not even like them really um, just kind of blending in with us until the time is right. It's very, very goofy. When you probably look at the faculty, how all the aliens decided to take over every single teacher of the school would be the best way to go about doing things. Is and in the town or whatever, it's just kind of like, well, yeah, I guess that's like basically them blowing up the White House. They know the right people that have the best influence to get their alien species further. Uh, yeah, but these aliens are so much smarter than we are. Man, if only I went to an alien planet and I knew the best buildings to blow up, and I knew the best way to just completely annihilate this species before I even plop down on their planet. Man, if only. If only. And I know you could say a lot of times, it's like, well, there's times when they can intercept satellites and stuff like that. How would they be able to know what to do with that information once they have it? Again, it's all translated in a different language than what they have. Like, what is all of a sudden an alien race gonna have English just like us, or whatever language just like us? That's very obscure to me. That all of a sudden it's like this alien species has a language that we have and can figure out easily how to attack us in the best way. It's just very obscure. It's very obscure. Um, Ultimate destruction in one place. Again, like I kind of mentioned in Independence Day, how all of a sudden we have one big, huge blast that completely destroys one building. It is kind of funny how the ultimate destruction in one place. You know what? Just in case people are aware, there are multiple buildings for the defenses of countries and whatever like that. Like there is not one. There is not one singular building that is gonna like completely annihilate and destroy our any country. It's ridiculous. But you have like Olympus Has Fallen, where a crazy amount of terrorists and whatnot all go and completely annihilate the frickin' White House and just take it over, to the point to where like we're just kind of like at the beck and call of this thing, and Gerard Butler is our only saving grace. Really, I highly cannot believe that, but I guess at the end of the day, it's just. I guess that's the way things go in this movie. It doesn't make any sense, but at the end of the day, it's just like, we only have one defensive building, and they took it. They took it. Again, that's why, like, the United States has like the Pentagon and all these defensive building things or whatever, White House and the whatever houses and the everything and what have you. It's just like this stuff just does not when like how in the very first Star Wars you have that one little hole that Luke Skywalker has to shoot through that completely destroys the entire Death Star. That is just kind of very ridiculous to me, to just be like, man, just this one little hole is the is one easy goal for you to just to destroy this entire planet-sized building. It makes no sense to me. Like, hey, you know how I'm going to destroy America? Just blow up the White House. You know how I'm going to just destroy this place? Just destroy this monument. You know how I'm going to do this? Take this one thing out. There is not one ultimate non-stop shop for you to just get one thing and just cripple an entire country. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. It just really doesn't. Because you have so many counters in place for something to happen. So at the end of the day, there's no way any of this normally would make sense. It just doesn't make sense at all. Choreography. I just kind of mentioned this earlier about the sunglasses thing and the nodding thing and the smoking a cigar and whatever. But at the end of the day, there feels like so many things in movies are forcibly, even more so now, choreographed together. When you probably look at Avengers Endgame, man, is it such a huge coincidence that all the female superheroes end up just being walking together all at the same time to walk with Captain Marvel, who has the Thanos gauntlet, up against Thanos. Isn't that a huge, gigantic coincidence that all those girls just so happen to be in the same place at the same time, and nobody had to battle anybody to get to that spot and what have you? Everybody was perfectly timely in the same place those certain amount of women in that certain amount of space at that certain time. Man, what a coincidence. It's as if they definitely absolutely needed to get to that place, to walk down that way, to showcase that freaking Marvel superhero women are freaking smoking hot at the end of the day. Especially Scarlet Witch. But anyways, it's just kind of like there's so much stuff that feels just so like, man, they probably had to practice that one part of this movie like 200 times. Like when the first Tobey Maguire movie where or Tobey Maguire has to have that lunch tray, and while he's holding Kirsten Dunst, he also has this lunch tray where he has to catch all these balls. And he's literally catching every single one of them. Like, legitimately, there was no computer CGI thing. All of that was actual practical effects. And it's just like, man. And supposedly they had to do that almost like 150 some odd times, or maybe more than that, to get that scene right. And it's like, man, could you just imagine just how long that scene had to freaking take? And how probably Tobey Maguire was just probably miserable after that scene? It's like, god dang it. Like this is like the toughest scene I'm ever gonna do in my life. It's just like, but hey, I'm gonna get paid a boatload of money to do this Spider-Man movie. But yeah, but it's just like at the end of the day, uh it's just a shame where those movies ended up going. But knowing how kind of how maybe both Toby and maybe Sam Raimi kind of felt, I think Sam Raimi at some point kind of mentioned that, man, those Spider-Man films were just, man, were they bad. But like for the time, people liked them, so great. Like looking back at almost like, man, I wish we could have done this. I wish we could have done that, and I wish we could have. Like, man, there's so many better things that we could have done with this instead of this, and it's just a shame and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's just maybe that's why they just stopped doing them, because at the end of the day, it was like, yeah, I'm really just sick of dancing in a movie. How goofy is that? Why are we? Why are we doing punk Spider-Man? He's evil now. Give him blackish like hair. uh Topher Grace still had his blonde hair. It makes no sense why Toby had to completely go emo. It just why? Um, why was there so many things in so many of these films that they did that when looking back on it, it looks really goofy, and it kind of looks like at the end of the day, it those were great movies for the time, and really, Spider-Man: Far From Home. Looking at that, it's just kind of like, okay, the other movies from before, they're looking pretty good compared to Far From Home. Uh, yeah, Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire still danced, but at the end of the day, the all the stories always had a purpose where Far From Home is just like, hey, this is a throwaway movie. Great. Everything is going to get thrown away. Sadly enough. In this film, there's no real thought put into everything. It's just rushed, and here we go with this. Here we go with that. There you go. Here's this. Here's that. Here it is. Here, right here. But yeah, it's just like to see like everything does everything at a lot of points does not look like it's natural anymore. Like everything has to be like done to a T now, to where it's like somebody just can't walk into a room. It's like, oh no, you have to walk in here, you have to open this door. You have to make sure it's stuck open, and then you have to kind of stretch out your arms and whatever, and then um, and then you got to do two push-ups, and then get back up, and then and then stretch out again, and then, oh hey, here's Toby Maguire walking in, and now you got to do his dialogue, and and uh, and while he's doing his dialogue, he's gonna bounce a basketball back and forth. You guys gotta bounce the ball back and forth 6 times to one another, while you're also thinking of this dialogue. And then after this dialogue is over, you gotta bow to Toby Maguire for some strange reason, and then walk back exactly the way that you walked in, because the camera is going to be where it's at, is going to be conflicting with where you are. So you definitely have to exactly walk back of how exactly you walk in. So definitely remember exactly how you walked in, because you're going to have to do the exact same thing with how you walk out. And it's just like, what the heck? Like, why can't we just, like, be human beings and do a scene with a human being, and then talk and do our lines, and then react to something, and then walk away once we're done? It makes no sense. Because, yeah, it's just, why does every single thing to a T have to be, like, choreographed out? Without a doubt, if it's like, hey, I'm not a dancer, I'm not a gymnast, I'm not a whatever. So at the end of the day, it's just, it's confusing, it's baffling, it's whatever. And of course, then you have to have those dancing scenes where every single person in the entire room know how to do every dance, no matter what it is, and they're all like 4 or 5 people are all doing the same dance in the same room at the same time. It makes no sense. And so on and so forth. Everything in movies is now like, is a formula. It's a melody. It's a melody. When you kind of look at the Queen movie, and how when you look at the legitimate footage of their Live Aid performance, when you look at the legitimate footage and the footage that is in the movie, everything down to a T is 100% replicated. And it's just like, man, just the time that they had to spend to get every little nook and cranny of that scene, let alone the entire movie, correct, is just kind of like, oh, man. Um, it felt like that movie probably took years off people's lives, to be brutally honest. Um, but yeah, anyways, movie games slash sports. You know what? It used to be on several movies and stuff like that, where some guy would always want to see some sports game. So if anything, he would mention to his lady, "Hey, could you record the new or the last Spurs versus 76ers or whatever? Could you just record that for me, please? I'd really appreciate it. Like, I really want to watch the game. Um, if you could, that'd be great. But I really need to go out. I really need to go and um, meet my guys to do some kind of fundraiser or something." And they're like, "Oh, okay, great, whatever." Yeah. And or like, we would get to where some movies would talk about like DVRing, um, or TiVoing, or whatever it ends up being, to record stuff. Or maybe there'd be a breakup movie about somebody. "You deleted my DVR stuff. You deleted my TiVo." um, but yeah, But like really, when it comes down to it, there's not a whole lot of movies where, like, say for example, like if the Avengers got together and Hawkeye is just kind of really trying to do his mission as quickly as possible, and like Captain America is looking at Hawkeye and he's like, "What is the rush?" And he's just like, "Spurs and Pistons are on in 20 minutes," and like I gotta get out of here, um, and whatever. And then so like really like the later and later and later this mission is going, um, like the more it's like Hawkeye should be like, yeah, I'm missing the game. I'm missing the game. I just want to know what's the. And then like Iron Man is just like, Friday, can you can you give him Hawkeye an update on the score? Like he's gonna be a little late for this game, so because evidently it's really important to him for some reason instead of saving the world today. But yeah, like how in the Avengers movie, like Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. had to point out that one of the Shield guys is playing Galaga. He didn't think we noticed, but we did. And then of course, in Avengers Endgame, Thor is playing Fortnite and is gonna tell some kid to stop cheating or he's gonna come after him. Um, like yeah, video games and sports don't really come up much on movies anymore, or anything. It's just a quick little thing for a cheap joke. At the end of the day, it would be nice if really we could get um, an interesting amount of things kind of buzzing for people that are maybe addicted to some kind of like mobile game or sports thing, whatever. It would just be tied to an interesting like little tidbit that you would know about a certain character. Um, like all of a sudden, Hawkeye and Iron Man are talking, and then Hawkeye kind of goes to one way, and Iron Man is saying it's like, oh hey, well yeah, um I'll download you this link, or I'll send you the funds for that, and then Mark Ruffalo's like looking at him like, and it's like, what are you sending him money for? It's like, oh, I just want to quickly upgrade through such and such mobile games. Like like really, there's a quick little way there to get a little sponsor plug and everything like that too. But legitimately, it's also just kind of like people have things that they do besides fighting crime 24/7. Like if anything, there's probably got to be a downtime somewhere. So it'd be kind of interesting to just kind of add those little things in. Um, Even though Iron Man probably won't be saying much movie wise. Uh, um, Much. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I just say Iron Man or Captain America or Hawkeye or Black Widow or whoever, just because it pops in there. But if anything, it's really kind of funny when again, like I said, like the Avengers movies would reference like video games and stuff like that because not a lot of other movies and such do so. And it was kind of cool to have those little things thrown in there because like, oh, these people actually legitimately have lives, and it's not just like saving the world 24/7. And it really just kind of really adds to the overall things about movies or things about whatever, and it's a little Easter eggs that are fun um, to think about. Maybe yeah, like when they'd have little snippets about um, like somebody liking something. It's just like, oh yeah, like I like that too. It's like, oh great. Like if Captain America went and saw the Star Wars movie, it's like, oh yeah, I just saw the Star Wars movie too. High five, and something like that. It's little tiny little Easter eggs that that make things like really fun and enjoyable to know. Like maybe Hawkeye off to the side likes football or something like that. Like little things would just kind of like little things of seeing little Easter eggs like that. It's really fun at the end of the day. I don't know. It's just my thought process, and I don't think we ever really see it that much. Social medias and news should just be everywhere. Should just be clamoring. Like, if anything, superheroes, when they're just walking around, they should be tripping on news reporters. They should be just tripping on people with just, like, their cameras. Just, look at the Hulk. Like, if anything, for, like, even Superman, like, we don't really, like, with a whole city of reporters or whatever, like, we don't get a lot of people that are just kind of I have my camera phone out. Like, we don't really get to see that very often in movies. Like, we don't get to see the social media aspect of this very often in films. Yeah, from time to time, I guess ultimately we could see it, but also at the end of the day, like, it would be kind of interesting if we maybe if we did the social media route where some guy was a low budget social media person, and eventually maybe they shoot this from his point of view, and he's shooting things, and he's getting some buzz, and then eventually something goes horribly awry, and maybe he becomes a villain, and the villain of the story, kind of like how oh god, how in the new the latest Spider-Man game, I think we have Yo-Yo. I want to say Yo-Yo. I don't remember her name. If people know the name of the character, write it down in the comments below. If you watch the Spider-Man video game, if anything, I know this character probably from Superior Spider-Man, and one of the characters ended up getting killed. Maybe a speedball or something like that got killed. Or I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while since the Spider-Man video game came out, but if anything, like, there should be more of a presence of social media really in movies and whatever. Like, if anything, kind of Shazam kind of did a social media thing with the one brother showing off videos and stuff like that of Shazam's powers, and stuff like that, doing pictures and stuff like that, and just kind of showcasing off all of his power. So it creates some buzz for this hero. But at the end of the day, that movie was just okay in my book. It was kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, it was okay. It's okay. Um, if anything, one last one last thing. Do the Avengers have to destroy everything in the city? Man, when the Avengers come to town and an alien invasion happens or something happens, man, do they just have to destroy everything? Everything. Like, you would think that, like, that somebody like Stark Tech or something would just put something in place to where, like, if a building just, like, gets destroyed or annihilated, they have, like, nanotech to quickly rebuild the building. And it's just like, well, that was a stupid decision that you try to do to blow up my building. Doesn't really work that way. But it's just like, yeah, it's like how we had to do Spider-Man Homecoming, where, like, Michael Keaton is kind of cleaning up all the Avengers movie stuff. It's like, man, like, that's gonna take freaking hours, or that's gonna take more than hours. That's gonna be taking, like, days, weeks, because, man, just, like, all the destruction, just, like, man, the whole city is in complete rubble. And it's just like, well, we don't care. We're just gonna create more rubble and more destruction, and we're gonna leave big, huge, gaping holes in our city, and we don't care. It's just like, well, we're just gonna, like, we'll just throw in a big fat check. Tony, why don't you sign a big fat check? and get that out there, and then yeah, and just clean up, send some company to clean up the city. But yeah, it's just kind of very goofy to me how it's just very goofy to me how like man, does this city, when some kind of alien invasion comes in, or some kind of big monster comes in, or like in Cloverfield, how like the monster knew exactly to take out the head of the Statue of Liberty and fling it. It's just kind of and they just did that because of the visual alone. But at the end of the day, it's kind of funny and baffling to me how like all this crazy destruction, like how we're getting to the point where like yeah, we don't have any like we don't have a home or anything. Like every single thing is destroyed. And I understand like for like hurricane sake and weather sake, whatever, it's like, well, yeah, that does tend to happen a lot too. And you get a thing that's powerful enough, and yeah, it destroys a lot of things. But also at the end of the day, it's just like when you have in like Iron Man, when you have in like Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, where you have like the Iron Legion, and they're all coming out, and they're trying to police the world, or whatever. Like at the end of the day, like man, like shouldn't you keep the destruction down to a minimum when you have Bruce and Hulk fused together to make Professor Hulk? Like shouldn't you like shouldn't the damage of everything be minimized down to a minimum? Like shouldn't we have like characters that really aren't heavily just annihilating the city with whenever they come on down? It's just kind of like man, like can we figure out a safer way to fight people, or even do what we used to do in older books where somebody would go and fight this person in a much secure place, like a forest or a park or a whatever, where there was a minimum amount of damage taken, or whatever. It would just be a much more convenient thing to do rather than right in the city streets, right in rush hour traffic, right in like to where like the most destruction can possibly happen in the center of this city. And it's just like man, like it's crazy. It's crazy. Just the overall destruction of everything, and how everybody's like, yeah, I guess it's Monday. I guess that's just another day, I guess. But I guess that's when, like in the Marvel universe, you have all those magic people that can, I guess, heal the city. But also at the end of the day, it's just, still, it's just baffling how, like people are trying to, not thinking about trying to establish the least damage to their city or their town or their whatever as much as possible. It's just like, sure, just blow it up. Who cares? Just blow it up. Yeah, just blow up the whole town. Who cares? We're just gonna take years to have to rebuild everything. It's all good. We can go to the we can go and do the deep impact route where Morgan Freeman was president, and you got all these rebuildings of all the White House just easily. Everything just goes with a snap of a finger. It's just so easy breezy. But yeah, with that, I think I should probably easily breezily get out of here. But let me know in the comments below if you've ever had any kind of movie logic gaps where it's just kind of very confusing to you what a movie tends to do. And maybe I'll bring it up in the next episode of this. Maybe compiling eventually people's thoughts, and maybe we'll debate or talk about it or whatever. Would be interesting. Yeah. if anything, eventually I would like to eventually just start to talk to more people about movies and stuff like that and get a real rapport going about movies and really just dissect these things out and really just kind of um, have an overview of maybe thought processes that maybe someone else didn't think of that maybe I did to just kind of add to this. Because I would like to do more of these. I would like to do more. But anything, that's all I got. So I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.